Welcome to Figure Feedback. My name is Jeremy, and this video is going to be all about this little 3D printer right here. This is the Easythreed K7 3D printer. And at first glance, you might be thinking, oh, that's a cute little printer there. It's so small. Is that a toy? And the answer would be, yeah, kinda. But at the same time, not really. But I'll explain what I mean by all of that as the video goes on. But for now, the most important thing for you to know is that this particular printer was designed as a really simple entry point for anyone who may be interested in getting into filament-based 3D printing. And that's because of the very easy setup, the very easy operation, and perhaps most importantly, the very low price. Now, I've seen this printer sell online for between $63 all the way up to around $100, just kind of depending on where you get it from and if there's any sales going on at that time. But this printer was sent to me so I can do this review, so I'm going to leave a link in the description to the place where the representative would like for you to go purchase this printer. I think it's fair that I leave that link in the description. And then I'm also going to put any kind of discount codes or special promotions that might be going on associated with this printer to possibly save you a little bit of money if you decide to pick it up. Now, like I said, this is a very basic printer with some very basic specs, so nothing is going to blow anyone out of the water. But just so you know, some of the most important specs are, keeping beginners in mind, is that this print area here on this bed is 100 by 100 by 100, and the print speed of this printer is going to be between 10 and 40 millimeters per second, and of course you can alter that inside of the slicer. It also has this removable plate here, which is magnetic, and it also has these little screw holes right here so that you can properly line up where it's supposed to go, so that takes some of the guesswork out of it. And it's not going to have any modern features. Now, I looked up some information about this printer. I was able to find some forum posts that date back to around 2021. And as a lot of us know, the technology that has been put into 3D printers since then has been absolutely astounding. So you're going to be getting some very bare bones things here. And if you want to level the bed, you're going to have to do it manually. So if you are super new to this, I did record some footage to show you what you have to do in order to manually level this bed. Trust me, everything is nice and simple. So go ahead and check out that footage and then come right back, talk a little bit more about this printer and show off some things that I've printed. So now I have the printer set up. It was very easy to put everything together, took no time at all. I have it plugged in and you can probably hear the fan moving right now. So before I do anything else, I need to level this platform, because if the platform is not leveled, then things will not print properly. And the way that I'm going to level this is by using an ordinary sheet of paper. This is printing paper. And the idea here is to put this paper on the bed, and then I'm going to press each of these black buttons right here. And that's going to make the nozzle come into contact with this piece of paper on the bed, and then I spin these wheels so that the nozzle can get a grip on the paper, but not so much that the paper can't move, but just enough to kind of feel it scraping, you know? So let me show you. So I'm just going to have this paper right here, and I'm going to push this first button. All right, so it's reached that first position, and as you can see, I am moving this paper very freely under here. And if I look down, I can see that the nozzle is not even touching the bed. It is hovering above it, and that is not a good thing. So I'm going to switch positions, and I'm going to spin the black wheel that's on the back left of this machine. And I'm going to spin it so that the nozzle comes towards the paper. And I'm spinning it clockwise right now. It's a little bit of a tight fit back here. So if you have really big hands, you might need a little bit of help. All right, so I got it to the point where if I try to move this paper, you see how it won't move? It's very stuck. So that means it's too low. So now I'm going to move the wheel counterclockwise. And now I got a little bit of a scrape, but not so much that the paper can't move, and this is going to be good. So I'm done with this side. Now I'm going to press the second black button, and it's going to move the nozzle to the second position. And I'm going to do the same thing. So you see, this is way too much movement, way too much movement. So I'm going to take this wheel here. It's easier now that it's in the front, and I am going to move it clockwise while simultaneously trying to get a feel of where the paper is. All right, so we're getting closer. All right, so we've reached that point. We got a little bit of a scrape. So I'm going to do the other thing for this corner and the back corner. So I'm going to hit 3 and we'll do the remaining 2 sides. Once you get it leveled the first time, go back, re-level it a second time, and then you should be okay. So this is the moment of truth. So it's already started to put down that very first layer. I'm not sure what exactly it's printing, but I'm looking at it and all the filament definitely is going down properly. So we're going to let this print. We're going to see what it is. I'll tell you how long it took and what this whole process has been like. All right, so as I'm looking at this ship here, it looks pretty smooth for the most part. If we have to dive into little tiny imperfections, we can see some little imperfection right there. I'm not sure if that's just a filament thing or if that's a layer shift, but for the most part, this rocket ship does look nice. There's the tip of it. Here's the bottom. It's hollow. I'm just nitpicking, you know, the little tiny imperfections like this. But hey, for the most part, this came out quite nice, I think, this little tiny rocket ship. I do have to tell you, there are a couple things about this little 3D printer that was kind of surprised that it had. In fact, I wish some of these features were available on some other larger, more serious 3D printers that were available at the time. And one of those things were just these 4 buttons here that automatically moves the print head to the 4 corners of the plate so that you can more easily do manual leveling. I thought that that was a very nice feature on these. And I also like the fact that this has a direct drive extruder. So that means that you can take the filament and just put it into this little tube right here, and then it feeds the filament through. You can feel it being pulled down in there. And I personally like that better than having to just feed it through a long Bowden tube like I do with my Ender 3 Pro. So I wish that these 2 features were available on the Ender 3 Pro, as well as some other Ender clones or other types of printers that were more recent at the time. So it was very, very awesome to see those 2 features on here. So that's enough about hardware for now. Let's talk about the prints, because that's what's really important. So this is the little rocket that I've already shown a close-up of. So you've seen that before. The second print that I wanted to do was a tolerance print, just to see how good or bad they were. And this is what I printed. Now, and this is where the first thing comes in. So accuracy with this printer is not its strong suit. As you can see in this little piece here, these are actually supposed to be movable numbers with the little levers that you can just sort of play around with and fidget with. But as you can see, everything is completely fused together. And it's really hard to read what those actual numbers are supposed to be. Now, about switching settings, could you change the flow? Could you change all these other things in a slicer like Cura or another slicer of your choice? Yeah, you could, but keeping in mind this is for beginners. And in order for something to be beginner friendly, that is the most intimidating thing that you can try to give to a beginner, to have them go into a slicer and change a bunch of settings that you don't even know what they mean. So if you just want to get the tolerance, the details, the accuracy right off the bat based on this, not really going to be a good idea. But with that being said, I did print this really cool piece here. Now this is a suspended hand. This suspended hand is one of the coolest 3D prints that I've seen lately because it's an illusion. It takes some very, very thin strings of filament, and it's all supportless, by the way, and it connects to the hand, and it makes the hand appear as if it is floating in mid-air. And it printed this thing I think, pretty well as far as the string details go. But when you look along the side of it, you can see that there are some very, very noticeable layer lines here. It's actually quite rough around the edges and on the areas that are supposed to be smooth. I did experience what I'm guessing are just extrusion issues from time to time. Sometimes it'll be quite a bit of under extrusion, some over extrusion at times. So, you know, the consistency not really there, and that's kind of where the whole accuracy thing comes in. But as far as just getting the print done, especially, you know, just kind of at this level, you know, I think it's not bad. I think it's all right. So these are still pretty small prints, but I wanted to try to max out the build plate as much as I could with a larger figure. And that's where this Boba Fett comes in. So this is a Boba Fett bust from Fotis Mint, printed with red PLA filament, and it's not bad. It's definitely not the best. Again, we can still see those layer lines. We still see evidence of some under extrusion here or there. But all in all, he definitely looks like Boba Fett. And since this is a larger figure, the details did come out much better on this larger print than a smaller print. We can see the little emblems on his chest. We can see some pouches right there on his belt. See that there's a nice definition on the backpack there in the symbol on his arm. It's all readable. It's all recognizable. You know, I think this looks pretty decent. Now, I did change some settings in order to print out this Boba Fett. In Cura, which is what I used with the default profile for this, it had the setting at draft. And from what I was able to see, draft is something that takes priority of speed over quality. So I switched it from draft to normal under the assumption that that will make the quality better. And I also slowed the printing speed down to, I want to say around 25 to 30 millimeters a second. And this guy here took about 12 to 14 hours to print, even though Kira said it would only take about 5.5. It was way off, but this was definitely over a half a day to print this guy on this bed. And like I said, it pretty much maxed out the build plate. It was about 90 to 95% there. So looking at these miniatures here, they tell a very similar story. You can see where the details are supposed to be, and it does it successfully in some areas, but there's still like a weird ghosting effect going on in these miniatures. Like I said, you can make out that this is supposed to be like a squid type guy, but the detail is still a little bit muddied. And here is a knight in armor, or maybe just living armor. And you can tell exactly what it's supposed to be, but at the same time, there's just this weird ghosting that was going on. So it makes it look like it's out of focus. So it makes these small miniatures look like the things that they're supposed to look like, but they're not going to be the best quality. It's just going to get the job done. And then when you look at this miniature here, this was not printed on this printer. This was printed on an Ender 3. So you can just sort of look at the difference between the difference of smoothness from that printer compared to this smaller printer here. There's a surefire difference between the two. Now, this is another one of these prints that utilizes stringing to the benefit of the overall design. And so I printed this vase almost as large as I could get it, at least as far as the height goes. And I think that it did a passable job. See that the hexagons on it, not all of them are together. Some are broken, some are a little bit jagged, but they are still there. They're still held together very well, in the stringing or in the places where they're supposed to be. For the most part, the effect is there. I guess that's what I'm getting at. The effect is there, and it printed it successfully, and I think that it has to be commended for that. Now for some diorama type pieces, I found these here. that I thought could be pretty interesting to print. It's kind of like a prison kind of a place. And so with this, I can just print 2 of these and just kind of stack these up, you know, kind of like this. And then I also had these stair pieces as well. So here are some stair pieces that kind of go along with this. And these stair pieces have these little inserts here so that I could just kind of put them together. They're supposed to just slide into each other so I can make a larger spiral staircase to just sort of connect to these bases, and you can just make as many as you want. But I found that they didn't go into each other. Either this notch right here is too big, or the slot under here is too narrow or too shallow, so it wouldn't fit in all the way. I also printed these with tree supports, but the tree supports are pretty well fused into the stairs, and it would just be too difficult to take them out, so I just left them there. But these were printed in vase mode, and that just leaves out this hollow top here, and the details along the side is not much. You know, it's a very simple design, but I think that it still came out reasonably good for this vase mode print. So these are just a few things that I printed on the Easythreed K7. And at the beginning of the video, I said, hey, this is sort of like a toy, but at the same time, no, not really. I say that it's like a toy because, I mean, look at it. It's small. It's made of mostly plastic. It's super lightweight. You can just toss this anywhere. It's dead simple to put together. And you're not going to be making anything that's particularly large on here. And because you're not going to get a whole lot of accuracy, you're probably not going to be printing things that you find important from a usability point of view, something that is functional. And from that instance, I would say, oh, well, it's sort of like a toy. But at the same time, this is not a machine that you will not have to try with. For example, when it comes to the leveling, you have to make sure that the build plate is level pretty much after every print. In my experience, even after completing a print and immediately going back and trying to print something else, I found that sometimes the build plate is, or the leveling of the bed is way off. Sometimes it's been too far away, the nozzle's been too far away directly after a print, and sometimes the nozzle has been way too close to the print bed directly after a print. So you're going to have to keep bringing out that paper, and you're going to have to keep turning the wheels and getting the proper leveling right before you start to do the print. And even though it's super simple to set up and it's super simple to operate, you still have to go through the slicing process. And that in and of itself can be a bit of a learning curve. So you still need to download either Cura or some other type of slicing software. If you do use Cura, they do include a profile for this printer on the USB stick that comes with it. So you'll be able to get the profile. They'll have the appropriate dimensions for the build plate and some suggested settings. But everything else, you're going to be on your own. So if you have a model that needs supports, you're going to have to figure out how to best utilize those supports, or figure out if it even needs supports in the first place. It's something that you still have to do. You still have to use the USB stick and put it into the computer and save the file to the USB stick, and then you have to put the micro SD card in here, and you can only print the latest thing that you put on the micro SD card. There is a way for you to connect the printer directly to the computer in order to print from there, but again, that's getting into more advanced territory with more instructions that you're going to have to follow in order to set that up. So is this printer worth the money, and should you even get it? Who is it for? Well, I think that if you look at it from an educational standpoint, if you have a kid or if you work in a school or something, and you just want to get someone into 3D printing and you want to kind of give them that trial by fire, you know, show them how things used to be when 3D printers were in their infancy, and showing them how you have to do the manual leveling and how you have to, you know, just be a little bit more hands-on with something like this so that they'll know what it's like going forward on bigger and more expensive machines, then yeah, I think that this can be a pretty decent buy because it's very affordable. And if something goes wrong, you won't feel like you wasted a ton of money if you can't fix it. It could be something that you can tinker with and something that you can mod and you can switch up. And that can be part of the whole educational process. And I think that's a really good thing. But if the education process is not really something that you're interested in and you just want a 3D printer that just works, you don't want to think about it too much, then I think that this one is probably going to give you a little bit more hassle than you bargained for. I think for people who are really looking for a more autonomous way to get into 3D printing, you're going to have to look for another machine that gives you the more modern features, like the auto bed leveling and the auto Z offset calibration, and, you know, printers that are out right now that just kind of do all of the setup for you. And mostly what you'll have to do to get a print started is just slicing it and then putting that file on your SD card, or maybe even shooting it over to the printer over Wi-Fi. If that's really what you're doing, if that's what you want, easy setup, easy print, easy, don't tell me about spinning these wheels, then you should go with another type of printer, because this one is going to be a little bit more frustrating for you. But one thing I think we can all agree with is that the price is really affordable, in a lot of cases cheaper than a AAA video game. And like I said, the best part about it is it creates a very good learning experience for someone who is new, whether you're a kid or whether you're an adult, whatever you are, beginner is a beginner. This thing can teach you a lot about 3D printing that can be both very enjoyable and frustrating all at the same time. So thank you all so much for watching. That's my take on the Easythreed K7 3D printer. And again, if you're interested in this, check out the link in the description, because that's going to take you directly to where you can pick this up. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe, because I always have more coming. And until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon.